is Chantel Ledbetter, and this is my Persuasive speech for communications. I'm here to talk about recycling. Recycling is the collecting and processing of materials that would otherwise just be thrown away. And it's highly advocated by a lot of different people. There's a lot of organizations that dedicate their entire lives and well-beings to the process of recycling. But I think that recycling is actually really bad for a lot of reasons. It's really bad because of cross-contamination, pollution, and inefficiency. As far as cross-contamination goes, it's impossible to completely clean any sort of material that you're going to melt down to its basic form and then reform into whatever you're trying to make. So, for example, if you have a spray paint can and you're going to use that metal in order to make, I don't know, silverware or something, you're never going to be able to get every single little piece of that paint residue and whatnot off of that. This has been a real issue in a couple different places. For example, in Taiwan, they built a building they were very proud of. It was mostly out of recycled materials, and they used recycled steel for their beams. And the steel had been contaminated in the process, and people are coming back years later getting diagnosed with gamma radiation poisoning. Another issue is just basic pollution. Out of all the factories in DC, the factories that deal with recycling are the biggest pollutants in the area. Plus there's the basic pollution of your recycling trucks, which are probably the most inefficient vehicle that there is, that costs more than $800. But this pollution is really bad for any sort of nearby neighborhoods that are around because they get to see the direct effects. It ruins their immediate view of the planet, of like your sky and whatnot. But it also, all these fumes and these black clouds are going to spread to the rest of the world because your air is all connected, and that's just how diffusion works. Oil is a huge pollutant when you try to recycle it. It makes sense to recycle though because it's a material that's in very high demand. It's in every single car, and every household has at least one car, if not more. So it kind of puts a huge perspective on how many cars there really are in the world, how much oil is being burned and used. And since oil is a fossil fuel, it is something that we need to either come up with an alternative for or really learn how to recycle it well. But the way we recycle it now, we take the used oil black, and since when it's used in your car, it goes through a lot of different chemical reactions. So it's not just like a pure oil that's just like blackened to the containers of it. You have to get rid of those extra chemicals that have been created in those reactions. So when they burn those off, they become the big dark clouds that come out of your factories. Paper is another material that's hard to recycle because of pollution. When you recycle paper, you make a paper pudding type thing. They call it paper sludge, but it kind of acts like a pudding in its consistency and whatnot. And it just has a liquid that's mixed into it, so it's easier for transport. It's more compact. There's not as much storage that's associated with the movement of it and whatnot. But these paper sludges have to be moved to either landfills or they're burned. And when they're moved to landfills, then they have time to seep into the ground, and they really can affect the soil as well as just the groundwater around, which gets into more issues of polluting everything that people have to be in on a daily basis. Another issue with recycling paper is that it takes a lot of energy to recycle paper, which that we could be using for any of our basic necessities. And people are always like, well, save the trees, save the planet, like we don't need to cut more trees down, blah, blah. But we farm trees for paper. We plant more trees every year than we actually use for paper. And they're not any trees. At this point, we're not cutting down anything new. It's just a tree farm. So look at inefficiency. Any sort of recycling is a very lengthy cost that diminishes lengthy process that diminishes quality and has a very high cost. Glass, for example, is one of the materials that's really inefficient to manufacture because it's made directly out of sand, and sand is literally the most abundant resource we have on the planet. So it's sort of silly to waste time and money when you could just make your own and just break down what you already had, especially when in recycling that glass, you're diminishing the quality, which makes it so that it's not something that people are going to want to buy, but it's also not going to last as long, so it's going to need to be re-recycled faster. Plastics are a difficult thing to recycle. It's probably the most common recycled thing, but very few types of plastic are actually recyclable because of all the manufacturing requirements associated with plastics. Each of these plastics are like when you send all of your water bottles and whatnot, they're hand sorted when they go to the recycling plant, so half of them get thrown away anyways. And the ones that do get sent on, there's still going to be that issue of human error. There's going to be a couple of them that get through that do have those BPA issues and whatnot, and it's going to get into your water bottles whether you know it or not. But with the manufacturing requirements for plastic, they're used in a manner that, like, so you have a thread, and it's just like a test tube with a thread on the top, and then it's heated and air is forced into it and it's pushed into a mold type of thing. So if you have different kinds of plastics in there, it's going to affect your water bottle. It's not going to work, so it's going to get thrown away and have to be remanufactured anyways. Another example of plastics being very inefficient is that, your basic Walmart bags, it costs $4,000 to recycle 1 ton of Walmart bags, but they sell for $32 a ton. So from a business perspective, there's no point in doing anything like that. There's no profit in it. You're not going to be gaining anything. Overall, I think that the demand for any sort of material is too high for recycling to be good right now. I think it's something that we need to improve on, but I think that we need to come up with a different way to do it, whether it's moving to entirely different materials. But the way our society is geared right now, we all want things that are quick, easy, grab and go. We'd rather grab the little tiny to-go pack for peanut butter than scoop some peanut butter out of the jar we already have and put it in a glass jar that we can wash at home. So I think that if people are really concerned about the planet, they need to consider their alternatives and their lifestyle and change that in order to change what they're doing to the environment.